Let's talk about this guy, Philadelphia sports media man Howard Eskin. After 38 years at local station WIP, Eskin announced he was leaving, though it allegedly came because of an incident. Here's what we know thus far. First, the tweet. After 38 years, I am moving on from sports radio WIP, where I launched the station's sports talk franchise in 1986. I leave the station with great affection for the listeners who have made the work I do so fulfilling during my time there. I'm looking forward to what comes next career-wise. I promise you you'll be the first to know. I hope you'll be the first to know. Thank you. He'd replied to a commenter saying he wasn't retiring, just to be very clear, just taking on the next challenge in his career. Now, what Eskin leaves out is what allegedly went down at a sports bar called Chicky and Pete's in South Philly. It came in December of 2024. Eskin hosted a remote broadcast with a staple in Philadelphia football media, former player Brandon Graham. The initial reports surfaced that at the event, Eskin shouted at a female employee of the radio station. Those were sources telling the Philly Inquirer. Then more news started to come out. It began as an argument with the employee that soon got physical. It's described that this Odyssey employee interrupted a convo Graham and Eskin were having, and thus, according to this, Howard Eskin yelled at her. He would then follow her, because we have to assume she walked away, and per the Inquirer, he grabbed her shoulder/arm area. Now, they say that there were witnesses who saw all of this happen firsthand. It caused quite a commotion at the place. And hey, just a quick break in the action. You should go subscribe to my new show, The Rick Strom Show. I'm going to be interviewing people from sports, music, journalists, authors, sports doctors. It's going to be fantastic. Please go subscribe. Thank you. Now, this incident also came after Eskin was already banned from Citizens Bank Ballpark, the stadium the Phillies play at, plus the training facility for the Philadelphia 76ers, because he made what was described as an unwelcome kiss by an Aramark employee. CBS News would note Aramark is the food and beverage provider for that ballpark. On the air, he would say this: I'm not going to get into specifics other than to say that I recognize that my actions have offended and upset her. I feel awful about that. I really do. I apologized to her at the time of the incident, and I apologize again now. After ties were severed, by the way, with WIP, Eskin tried to get into the NovaCare complex, which is the practice facility to the Philadelphia Eagles. He was denied entry. He tried saying that he worked for, I believe it was Fox, and they said, no, dude, no, we're not letting you in. He has been replaced by Devin Caney. Many Eagles fans are rejoicing online with the news that has been delivered. Eskin, though, has come out denying what went down at Chicky and Pete's. His tweet would read as follows. So let's go through this. I had hoped to avoid commenting on my departure from WIP, but the vicious smear campaign being waged against me by a small group of employees at the station forces me to defend myself. There was absolutely no physical altercation between me and a female employee at the station. I did not forcibly grab anyone. The employee interrupted me during an important conversation with Brandon Graham, and I raised my voice, irritated at the interruption. She stormed away, and I followed her and tapped. That's the difference right there. Tapped her arm to get her attention to apologize and explain why I was upset. I did not grab her. I apologized 3 times. She wouldn't accept my apology or hear me out. The amount of piling on since has been disappointing, to say the least. I am only commenting because in all the years of a very public life, I have never put a hand on anyone. I can't tolerate these lies. As they say, don't believe everything you read in the paper or on social media now. A person that he has had an up and down relationship with is a fellow former radio broadcaster, Andrew Cataldi. The Inquirer's story, Cataldi would say, was not correct, you understand. He did not get forced to resign because of shouting at a woman executive from Odyssey. He got fired because he made physical contact with her 3 times. He grabbed her arms. She asked him, after the first time he grabbed her, not to do that anymore. He was just upset because he was under instructions to get Brandon Graham out of Chickies and Pete's, and he grabbed her. And she said, "Don't touch," and he grabbed her again. But he was just in the moment, and that's what ended it for him, Cataldi continued. It wasn't that he shouted at her. Shouting would not get him fired. So that's the real story. It's everywhere. The fact it isn't in the media is mind-boggling. It's everywhere. There were dozens of witnesses to this, and no one reported the real story. The story that ran Thursday, it took them 11 days to get half the story. It wasn't that hard to get. I got it, and I'm retired. Mike Cielski, who's a writer for The Inquirer and used to host weekends at sports radio WIP, would say it was a long time coming for Eskin. He'd write, Eskin never bothered to scale the ladder to the high wire. His agendas were obvious and calculated, and he made no apologies for them. The piece continues. Eskin's praise or criticism of a particular franchise, coach, or athlete was based solely on whether that institution or individual served his needs. Did they give him access? Did they give him attention? Could he toady his way into their good graces? The takedown from Cielski would go on to write and be printed. His shtick was the precursor to the empty, attention-seeking economy that sprouted up in the age of social media. Grandstanding displays at pressers, questions intended not to gain insight but to generate extreme reactions and succulent sound bites, insults and false narratives, and unethical, inappropriate conduct, all tolerated in the name of being relevant and moving the needle. Lastly, no multimillionaire athlete who has passed through Philly over the last 3 decades, no spoiled child of the modern pro sports machine operated with a more inflated sense of entitlement than Eskin did. And if the franchises here believed that they, like pet owners, could placate him by feeding him a few treats, they succeeded only in emboldening him and encouraging the very behavior that brought his career to its humiliating end. To be clear, it is not technically the end. I believe he has launched his own show called the Howard Eskin Show. But let me be clear about something. If these allegations are true, he should never work in Philly sports media again. There are already countless accusations against him of wrongdoing. So he did not help his cause when you are banned from covering these teams at their practice facilities, respectively, or even a home stadium like Citizens Bank. You are essentially a risk in the workplace. And I believe that's why, after 38 years, Sports Radio WIP was like, enough. We can't deal with this anymore. And I would guarantee that there are likely some stories that many people who worked with him are, just for the sake of not piling on, adding more fuel to the fire. Because if we have seen anything from this past week of what goes on in sports media, there's a lot behind the scenes that have not been uncovered. So may I just say, to those that will be covering the Eagles and those that will be filling in Howard Eskin's place, I say good luck to you, and whatever Howard Eskin does from here on out, that's his prerogative. If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports, and or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.